Well, welcome once again to the Doctor of Digital and the Doctor of Digital podcast, crafting authentic connections in an AI-driven world. The purpose of the show is to transform your business and life with education and inspiration. I introduce busy people to trends and ideas and improving your life by highlighting authors you should know. What does it take to stand out in a world where artificial intelligence shapes every click, post, and purchase? In his groundbreaking books, Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, The Social Media Edge, and Authenticity Marketing to Generation Z, Emanuel Rose offers a roadmap for businesses to forge genuine connections in a digital landscape dominated by algorithms. Join us as we dive into the art and science of authentic storytelling, exploring how Rose's strategies empower brands to resonate with audiences from Gen Z to corporate executives while staying true to their values. Emanuel Rose is a trailblazer at the nexus of marketing and technology, with over 3 decades of experience as a direct response advertising expert and the founder of strategic eMarketing. Born on the West Coast, Rose has built a stellar reputation for helping countless businesses achieve success through innovative content strategies and authentic storytelling. His books have generated widespread recognition for their practical insights, earning praise from industry leaders for guiding marketers through the complexities of AI-driven campaigns and Gen Z's unique preferences. As a thought leader, Rose's work equips executives and entrepreneurs to harness employee advocacy, social media, and cutting-edge tools to elevate their brand's impact. In this episode, we'll unpack Emanuel Rose's vision for authentic marketing, diving into real-world strategies from his books to engage customers and build trust in an AI-saturated market. We'll explore how to craft campaigns that captivate Gen Z, leverage the power of the social media CEO, and measure success in both B2B and B2C spaces. Drawing on Rose's expertise, we'll dive into the candidate of what he has, the copies of his books, and also to create a plan that blends authenticity with innovation, ensuring your brand thrives in today's digital age. By the end of this episode, you'll be inspired to rethink your marketing approach, and I encourage you to connect with Emanuel Rose to dive deeper into his transformative strategies. Grab your copies of his books today to unlock practical tools for building a brand that resonates. Reach out to Emanuel at Strategic eMarketing and to start your crafting your authentic story today. With that, I want to welcome Emanuel to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mick. I appreciate that introduction. I want to meet this man you just described.
You know, I'm always curious about background and why you got started in this. And I mean, this is such a dynamic field. So I really appreciate your time and coming on. Everybody's interested in AI. Everybody's interested in this. So could you tell us a little bit about your background? How'd you get started in this and what motivated you?
Yeah, well, I started this agency, Strategic eMarketing, 16 years ago. And I had just gotten fired from a job that where I had been brought in as a change agent, and they told me not to make any changes for 90 days. And then after 90 days, they fired me. Oh. So, which that company subsequently went out of business. So not surprisingly, right?
Sure.
So it kind of was born out of some reflective time where I was thinking, well, maybe I'm unmanageable. Maybe I just need to do my own thing. And so that's when social media was very obviously the next big wave of marketing. And so I started the agency, and I got 2 or 3 clients, of which I still have. So I've had a number of clients for the whole 16 years I've been in business, which is very emblematic of the type of relationships I like to build in business.
That's awesome. And, you know, that's such an inspiring story because, you know, I've heard this before. It's like, you know, I got fired by somebody and then, you know, it led to bigger and better things, you know, so sometimes the bad things happen in life are, you know, not that bad.
Yeah, it's the mythologist Michael Meade. He calls these initiations, right? And so we go through initiations in all places in our lives, either relationships or health issues or social catastrophe, and then it's part of our souls rearing its beauty in how we respond to those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our, the only thing we get to control, I tell people all the time, is our attitude, right?
Yes,
And when bad
absolutely.
things happen, it's just your turn. That's all.
That's right.
We all take turns.
Expect it every 10 years at least. There's going to be something that's going to kick you
Yeah,
in the gut, and then you got to respond to
yeah, absolutely.
it.
So then can you tell us a little bit about the books? I mean, it's really exciting and groundbreaking work, and you've done this, you got a lot of experience. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I saw these bigger trends that were coming upon us. Gen Z is the biggest cohort that exists in the United States and really in the world right now, but primarily in the United States. 68 million people coming online.
Mm,
They're about 27, 28 is the oldest of the cohort. So 15 to 30 basically. And they're the first digital generation, like
yeah.
literally never have
Yeah.
known a day without the smartphone and Instagram.
Hmm.
So it requires you and I to spend some more time to understand them, because obviously we're not from that cohort, and they require a level of one-to-one from the brand. So if you think of Richard Branson or Elon Musk,
Yeah.
that they're expecting that kind of intimacy. Kylie
Mm,
Jenner, right? Like, she was on TV for decades, and now she's got this massive cosmetics brand. So they need to have that where they feel like they're in touch with the person who's running the business.
I see.
And so that really is much simpler for those of us in small business than it is for bigger businesses, because
Hmm.
oftentimes we are the ones who founded it or um, are in the day-to-day ops. So it's really incumbent upon the owner or the manager, CEO, to spend time doing what we're doing here, which is either podcasting as a guest or preferably as a host,
Okay.
so that you can manage your brand voice and have real conversations with real people, and then have the emotional intelligence distributed throughout the marketplace.
Okay. So, could you tell us a little bit again, because you're a multi-volume too, and you've got really a series going. Tell us about your writing process. There's sometimes people write in the morning, the afternoon, they go on vacation. There's all different ways. So how do you write, and what's your process like?
Yeah, and I started writing books that never got published or that I never finished.
Okay.
20 years ago, I've had a number of half-written business books,
Hmm.
and so that's the first thing, which is kind of the perseverance that everybody's got their story, their experience. There's always somebody who can learn from what you've lived through, and it's not always a straight line. So I bring that in to say, if you've tried it a number of times and didn't get through it, that's okay,
Yeah,
because the next project is the one that you can work on.
sure.
I work on the ready, fire, aim model, and I try to get a minimally viable draft completed, and then I rush that into production so that I have something that
Hmm.
it looks like a book. So I'll do my research, I'll write, and I write kind of in blocks of time. So and I have two series of books. I also write children's books, and that's a
Right.
totally different process for me.
Hmm.
Um, but for the business books, it's very intellectual for me to do the research, um, find the stories and the case studies, and then build the chapters. Rush that into some kind of a productive, so that it's visually it looks like a book. So I feel like that's my little trigger where I feel like I've actually done something.
Yeah.
And then I'll actually sometimes get that printed even as a rough draft, and I'll have a copy. So I've got the cover, I've got a table of contents, I've got, you know, unfinished document, unfinished manuscript, but it feels real. And
Hmm.
then I can push it through the iterative process from there to rough out or to increase word count in certain chapters, or delete things that don't make sense, and with a pen and paper, or sorry, with pens. So I'll just run through it and mark it up from there. Go back, finish the manuscript, then send it to editor. So every serious writer has an editor, and if you don't have an editor, get an editor.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you're laughing, but absolutely, because no one can just come fly off the handle and that, yeah, it's set. It just doesn't work that way.
And it's tough to edit your own work just because you're so close to it.
Yes.
And I'm kind of I'm not the most structured writer, so I send it to the editor, and David goes in there and cleans it up for me, and then I'll run another printed draft, and send it to my inner circle to read through and make sure that what I'm saying makes sense to other humans, and take their edits, and then do another draft, and then we'll push it through the publishing process. I have a marketing agency, so my team does all the prepping for distribution and all the marketing. So, I'm unique in that way that, most people are going to have to contract for that or get a publisher. But my goal with the book's not so much to become a bestseller or make money from the book sales, but to have it be taking a position on things and set up opportunities for speaking,
Yes.
and other situation, client acquisition also.
Now, you do have the two series, so I think we should at least mention them, and maybe you could talk a little bit, because it's more unusual, because you have the intellectual side and you have the children's side. What's the difference? And maybe the process is different as well.
Totally different process. For the children's books, which are a series of books on values clarification and natural history that I started writing for my grandchildren.
Nice.
So as gifts to them, to help trigger them and to be interested in the natural world, and to think about what it is to be a human being, right? And so for that process, that's an early morning writing for me, and that is one where I try to keep the lights out. I try to stay in more of a dream state, a meditation state, and create the stories, and then work to then deepen each of those stories with archetypal concepts, with human concepts, and then make it multidimensional, so it's interesting for the adult reader as well as the child. So they tend to be there's actually more construct in the children's stories than there are in the business books because of that.
And what's the difference in terms of writing? Because that's different parts of your brain, essentially, too. People, when they write, they have writer's block, and they have other things that kind of stumble them. What do you feel about those kind of issues? Do you have those, or you been brimming with the ideas?
Yeah, of course, there is the writer's block. Sometimes I will use I can use chat for little pieces of that, just to kind of break out of the writer's block, and get some new ideas in there, and then take those ideas as germination back into the story, and to kind of trigger myself back into writing. But it tends to be more creative and more around the children's books are more around the hero's journey and that classic story arc.
Yes.
Where the business books are more about factual concepts, case studies, action to get into. So.
And what's the difference in terms of publishing it too? Because you're in kind of an unusual situation, as you said, and for the business books. And then what about the children's books? Does that come under the same entity, or do you look for different publishers in that regard?
Yeah. So again, I'm self-published on that, and it's the Nature Bound series. So I have a podcast that I use to support those. And then I'm doing more book signings actually with the children's books than I am with the business books. So that tends to be a lot more kind of hand-to-hand sales with the children's books, even though everything's on Amazon. But I tend to sell more marketing books on Amazon and more of the children's books at events.
Okay, well, that's another angle I'm always curious about, because authors and potential authors are interested. That's the marketing aspect. So how do you market then what you've done? And then with two different series, what are the differences and similarities in the way that they are marketed?
Yeah, so the structure for me remains the same. Where we have you got to have good descriptions, you got to have good cover art, and then you work to build an email list, so that you can send out emails, and that's part of what the podcasts do. Is they always give us fresh content to send to our email list, and then with the idea we're providing value as number one and selling books number two in those emails. We also use pay-per-click through social to drive people to landing pages, and then the events and speaking events. So live speaking events, either paid or volunteer speaking, always generates book sales also. A lot of children's books authors also will do school readings, and there's a whole, to either provide some kind of entertainment, like sing along kind of things, as well as the book reading. And then a lot of authors will charge for that also. So they're paid to present at schools, for instance. It hasn't been as interesting to me to develop, but I like the e-commerce part of it, and I like doing 6 or 8 events a year, and that's enough for me.
Sure. And I'm curious, like, where did the ideas come from? And in other words, what's the creative aspect here? Like, ideas for both business books and for children's book. I mean, sometimes children's authors are, it's like their own kids or their grandchildren, so it's for real life experiences. And
Yeah.
then for the business books too, again, how and why do you come up with the ideas in order to write the things that you do?
So on the marketing books, I'm really looking to capture the biggest trends possible so that there's the most bandwidth possible, right? So it takes, a 12 to 18 months to write a marketing book for me. I want that to be as evergreen and last for as long as possible. So marketing in Gen Z will last for probably the rest of my career. Authenticity in the age of AI is probably needs to be rewritten already, right? Because
Yeah.
I wrote it in 2022. It was published in 23, right when chat came on. And there's been 3 decades worth of changes that have happened in the last 2 years.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
which is why I added in the prompt writing book, and I added in generative engine optimization, which is technical marketing, similar to like what search engine optimization is, only it's for the generative engines, the GPTs. So I'm kind of keeping up to date with the little more specific subject books.
And then for the children's books, like where that's
And that was came from my desire to influence the grandchildren, because we weren't near them, we weren't in close proximity for kind of weekly or daily activity, and literally I was sitting next to a river in the middle of nowhere after a long day of turkey hunting, watching this red-tailed hawk circle, and then it just all kind of hit me. It's like my grandson's name was Henry, and I'm sitting next to the Wanaha River, and there's a red-tailed hawk, and so I'm like, that's it. That's the hero of the story, Wanaha Henry, the red-tailed hawk. And I just committed at that point to writing that one book. Ended up writing, I think I've got like 30 different stories written now.
Mm-hmm.
I've published 6 of those. But then I hired an experienced children's book writer to consult with me and make sure I understood the structure. I read a handful of books about it, and educated myself.
Yeah.
But it came from that really primordial desire to influence my family. And then I structured it the way I do, which is through education, and then ready, fire, aim. I get one done, send it to the illustrator, and then get started on the next one. So yeah, that's the process for me.
Well, very fruitful and productive. So I'm now curious about what does the future entail more books on your professional life, more books on the children's story? And are you waiting for inspiration, or what do you envision now for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the next book I'm going to write for marketing will be, and I'm working on it right now, is about the role that podcasting will play in our professional lives for the next few years, and how to produce meaningful podcasts for the business, which is A is the hub for content marketing, and then B as the hub for lead generation. So there's a concept that's called, and you're probably familiar with it, Mick, which is this kind of prospecting by interview.
Mm,
And so a business can make their list of 50 top prospects and then invite an executive from each of those prospects to be
sure.
on the podcast, right?
Yes.
And then you're creating a warm introduction for yourself in ways that you probably wouldn't be able to. So I'm working to encapsulate those two concepts: content marketing, lead generation via podcast, and then build out the how-to part of it, complete with um, all the technical parts of it, and the software I was talking about with you, Influent Frame, which is a really nice AI software that makes it very quick and easy to take finished podcasts and then do the marketing for them.
Yeah, I appreciate the insight into the next thing, because obviously I'm interested in podcasting as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm getting a
Yeah.
sneak peek here, but I agree with you. I think if you look at what podcasting has done, it's kind of an overlooked medium until now people are starting to realize it's a very powerful medium. And what I always say is like, well, where else can you get right inside a person's head? Because that's what podcasting is. You're right inside their brain because they're listening to you. So, take advantage of that because they can really be helped by what you have to say.
Yeah, and it provides us. It's kind of like how X is, where it's a very direct medium, right? You're hearing straight from people instead of having to have it filtered through other media to understand what somebody wants to do. And that's like I was saying, that's what the Z's demand, is this kind of transparency, authenticity, whatever you want to call it, where we're taking a position on something. Everybody's not going to agree with it, but it is what we believe is the direction of our business, and then it becomes the very easy centerpiece of our entire marketing. I mean, I'm sure you probably have 50 years worth of content marketing if you wanted to use just what you've already got in the can. I mean, I'm only 150 episodes in, and I never have to do another one if I just was doing content marketing. So it's powerful in that way too.
A couple of things I was curious about, because I'd like to have naturally some takeaways, some actionable tips. But one of the things you mentioned early on, of course, is that a lot of people don't realize that you started writing a long time ago, but didn't necessarily finish. But that's pretty common. So a lot of authors or potential authors are thwarted, and then until a better time, they actually get them done. So I'd like to, if you could tell some takeaways, like how do you write? Because you started and didn't finish.
Mm.
And then you
Yeah.
have find various ways to be inspired in order to actually write and finish books.
I mean, for me, I'm not very good at following rules. So um, I had to give myself permission to not write the traditional New York Times bestseller structured book. So that was the first thing, is to say, I'm going to do it my way. I'm self-publishing, so there's nobody who's telling me I'm doing it wrong. And so that was the first thing, was say, I got 125 pages. Okay. It's not 200 pages like you're supposed to be, right? But it's a complete treatise. It handles the subject that I want to handle, and it's good enough. And so that was the first thing, is don't be constrained by the publishing houses in New York City, right?
Mm,
Like, it's a creative act. And if you look at Rick Rubin's book on creativity, does not follow the standard process. And I recommend everybody take a look at Rick Rubin, who's the genius music producer of
yes.
every big name music act for the last 20 years. Um, It's a great book. And it doesn't follow any of the rules because that's how Rick Rubin is. He doesn't wear shoes. And he doesn't go to the barber, and he doesn't play any instruments. But he's a music producer.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I would say embrace a couple of books like Natalie Goldberg, Bird by Bird, or some other authors who talk about writing, and then take away one or two things. Like Natalie Goldberg's famous, or one of her quotes that I love the best is just go in there and write the worst shit that's ever been written and do it every day. And eventually there's going to be some gems in there that you can edit into your manuscript, but you have to do it in order to make it better.
Yeah, you got to do it first, right? I mean, it seems obvious, but
but because we get, especially, it seems like writers, we tend to be in our heads a lot, and so think about writing a lot, or we think about what we'd like to write, but you got to actually get in there, open a document, and add to it on a consistent basis. Daily basis is the best way. When I'm in my writing mode, it's kind of like the first thing I do every day. I'll be up at 5 or 5:15, write for 15 minutes or as long as I can, and before I start my work, because that's a different part of the brain.
And you also said about getting some feedback, which is someone who's editor, coach, or someone to bounce ideas off. And you also mentioned you have some other people within your team that you present it to as well as trusted companions, I guess.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, there's lots of writing groups. I mean, I'm on a ton of writing groups on Facebook, for instance. There's like the Nevada Literary Guild or something like that. And there's lots of access to other writers who will trade comments if that's something that you need in your life, if you don't have anybody who's immediate to you or on your team. And then certainly, and for me, because it's challenging for me to translate 35 years of understanding of marketing to say a 101 level. And so I have to get help simplifying it, making sure I'm speaking in English, not in jargon. So that's critical. That's a critical transition. And then, we talked about editing, and then a professional book cover designer is the other thing. You want to get the best you can afford for cover design as well.
So with that, of course, the key always is, where do we get your books? How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah.
And tell us, because once a person has heard what you've done and it's really interesting on two different levels, both the children's books and the marketing side, how do they get a hold of you? Where do they get the books? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you bet. And thanks for asking, Mick. I have a website called EmanuelRose.com. It'll be the first one that comes up in Google if you Google me. Or you can search for me on Amazon, and the books are there on Amazon also. So either place, whatever's easiest for you. I'm also on LinkedIn. Love to be connected there for the business realm, and love conversation of any kind about anything that the people are working on. If I can help, I'd love to.
I appreciate that. You have fascinating insights into this brilliant areas on two different levels. So that's very impressive. So I thank you so much for coming on the program and allowing us to hear a little bit of your expertise and a little bit of your wisdom as well. It's awesome that you're helping out the grandchildren too. It's just a really nice thing. So thanks for taking up some time, Emanuel. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mick. I'm grateful to have a conversation, and hope we can do this again sometime.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right. That's so good. And I always tell people, we're here for inspiration and education. And I certainly was educated, and I learned a lot. If you want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm on the Idea Author Coach on Facebook. Always open to a conversation. Want to know more about me and my activities. I also want to thank the publishers of a couple books that I have. They're also on Amazon, Burning America, and also On Track, Ian Hunter. So with that, this is the Dr. Digital signing off. Until next exciting episode, we'll see you again. Take care. Day is full.